Joining us for more on this special coverage is Marina Kurtunova, our correspondent in the Russian capital, Moscow, and also Tim Kirby, radio host and political analyst, also from the Russian capital. So, firstly, Marina, what more can you tell us? What's the latest developments you're hearing on the ground there in Russia?
Well, the whole situation is very tragical, and I must start that Wagner PMC is a very respected organization among military, among people of Russia. And as you mentioned earlier, Yevgeny Prigozhin said that the president was mistaken about the betrayal of the motherland, and the Wagners are patriots of Russia. He mentioned that all PMC fighters fought and are fighting, and no one is going to turn themselves in at a request of the president, the FSB, or anyone else. PMC Wagner does not want the country to live on in deceit, corruption, and bureaucracy. By order of the commander-in-chief of the PMC, they went and fought in Ukraine, in Africa, and according to Prigozhin, strikes are being made on peaceful columns, and all those who oppose PMC have gathered in a circle of scums. I'm quoting Yevgeny Prigozhin. So Putin, for his side, called the heroes of the Wagner fighters who fight in the northern military districts. Their name and glory were betrayed by those who organized the rebellion. The armed rebellion organized by the head of Wagner, Yevgeny Prigozhin, Putin said, is the result of exorbitant ambitions that led to treason and betrayal. This is how Russian President Vladimir Putin described the situation. So the conflict between Prigozhin and Defense Minister Shoigu has been going on for more than 6 months and entered an acute phase half a year before today's events. So in Russia, in media, everybody, no one justifies Yevgeny Prigozhin, but in fact he acted reactively in that corridor of actions into which the head of the Wagner PMC was pushed, having calculated his actions. Lots of what Yevgeny Prigozhin has been saying, criticizing regarding the military leadership is true. No one denies it. But this only enhances the tragedy of the situation and the destructive effect of the events taking place. So Russian Secretary Council Deputy Chairman Dmitry Medvedev said on Saturday that disunity and treason are the way to the greatest tragedy, a universal catastrophe. But the Russian authorities will not let it happen, and the enemy will be defeated. Any attempt to sow discord within country is the greatest crime, which has no excuse, Russian Patriarch Kirill mentioned. As for Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov, he said, he wrote in his Telegram channel that he fully supports every word Putin says. In a post on Telegram on Saturday, the Chechen leader offered a scathing rebuke of the head of the private military company, denouncing his actions as a knife in the back and a real military mutiny. Kadyrov stated that an armed conflict is not the time for personal grudges, saying the rear should always be safe and secure. He also added that Wagner's actions could only result in bloody consequences. According to Kadyrov, Chechen members of the Defense Ministry and the National Guard have already headed out to the regions where tensions are high. The insurrection must be quelled, and if harsh measures are required, we are ready for them, Kadyrov said. The Russian Ministry of Defense had urged Wagner as well, Wagner Group, private military company, soldiers to cease their armed insurrection, urging them to return to their bases. In a statement on Saturday, the ministry claimed that members of the PMC have been tricked into taking part in Wagner Group chief.
Okay, let's switch to Tim Kirby, a radio host and political analyst. Tim, what's your take on all this? Is the Wagner Group and its head where does his loyalty lie? Does it lie with Russia, or does it lie with the enemies of Russia?
The way it looks, although I can't say for sure that I understand what's going on inside a different person's mind, I think his loyalty kind of lies to his own ego. As we've noticed over time, Prigozhin has become when he has made some sort of public appeals or voiced his sort of discontent with certain things that are happening within the war, he's done it in a very populist and sort of theatrical way. Not that there's anything wrong with populism, but it almost looks like he was building a political career while the battle for Bakhmut was going on. And in a lot of ways, this sort of seems to follow that line of reasoning, that it's like, well, I'm going to try to, I guess, being him, he's thinking, well, I'll try to overthrow the military, but without overthrowing the government. And it's almost like, in a way, he feels that he has the right to Shoigu's position to an extent. So it seems like this may be a little bit of some sort of strange ego games if he's actually doing what he's saying. But we have to understand that there's a lot of disinformation and confusion here, because as a military leader, he has no supply lines. Like, if he was complaining in all those videos in Bakhmut that he wasn't shells per day, well, him gallivanting across the Russian countryside or trying to get troops to stand in the middle of Rostov-on-Don, he's not exactly going to be able to loot stores to get artillery shells. You know what I mean? So I just logistically don't even see what he could possibly accomplish. It's just not possible. It's like laying siege with absolutely no food in any of your men's backpacks. Once their stomachs are empty, the siege is over.
Right. This is the point, Tim. Is it really? Has he thought this out really in a logical mindset? What's his thought process when we're hearing that the Chechen leader says his forces are ready to help put down a mutiny? You don't want to mess with the Chechens, and so is this part of a NATO-backed conspiracy?
Well, we never really know. You never really know what exactly could be part of some conspiracy or what couldn't. But essentially, what he's doing is insane militarily. It's just as insane as how the Ukrainians recently, they throw 50,000 men and hundreds of tanks to slowly, in column formations, ever so slowly approach the Russian positions, and they didn't even really make it to the front line, nor did they break through. It's the same logic. He, as someone who commands the military, has to absolutely be completely aware that what he's doing has no chance of victory other than by some sort of weird PR maneuvering to somehow make others join his movement. But that's really, really unlikely to happen. If he thinks that he actually can succeed doing this, then he's lost his mind. Or his objectives are something else, or PR related in some manner. I don't know. But what could the CIA offer him when he's surely going to either be caught and put in jail or blown to bits?
Right.
What could they possibly offer him? You can't use $1 billion in a Russian prison or after you've been hit by some sort of drone or whatever. So it just doesn't, the sort of a bribery standpoint makes a lot more sense from, say, Kiev's politicians than it does for Prigozhin inside the territory of Russia proper.
Absolutely mind-boggling, Tim. Is there a possibility that Prigozhin is perhaps in line with the Russian intelligence, and this could be part of Moscow's plans of deception to, for lack of a better word, divert the attentions of its enemies on the battlefield?
Well, of course, just like in the United States or in China, all of the sort of major superpowers on our planet have quite the security apparatus. And so the problem is you ask that question as if it would be something special if he had some connections within, or as if state security was monitoring him. But I wouldn't be surprised if there's a lot of state security monitoring of every significant person involved in the conflict right now. Trust me, I would, if any particular Russian general were to start making a lot of phone calls to France, they would immediately get a knock on, I was going to say a knock on the door. Perhaps it'd be better to say a knock on their tent, the flap that allows you to go into their tent. You see what I mean? So obviously there has to be some connection between him and state security. We also have to remember that technically within Russia, again, technically, during Medvedev's time, they banned all private military corporations. Mercenaries as a concept were banned, except for this one group. The Wagner Group is this weird exception to the rule. Because you have to remember the Chechens are actually part of the Chechen Republic's structure. So they're actually part of the Chechen government. Wagner is it. They are the the alpha and the omega of Russian mercenaries. So again, this is very confusing why they've been this special exception. Some people speculated they got this special exception status because it allowed Putin to sort of have a little bit more self-control over a particular military unit. So again, this theory of the justification of their existence is in sort of direct contrast to what they're doing right now. Then again, things could be simple. Mercenaries tend to be very disloyal. Look at the history of, say, Byzantium, and you sort of could see the picture. Mercenaries are generally not a good idea, especially in the 21st century, when we have this idea of having a nation that has this ideology and beliefs and all that. Mercenaries are always in direct contrast to this. So why during Medvedev's time they banned everything and got rid of it, except for this one group, is yet another mystery.
Marina?
Although the Wagner Group rose later. They rose after the Medvedev period, but still, after the Medvedev ban, they came into being. So.
Right. Marina, you say the Wagner Group are a nationalist force. So is it possible that they clinched the deal with the Russian military in a bid to confuse the enemy?
Well, I don't know. This is a very strange situation, and the team was right. Even me personally, I can't understand why Yevgeny Prigozhin made this, because he realized that he would not probably get the total support. So I can say right now, for example, that the chairman of the UK Defense Committee said that now is a great opportunity for Ukraine to take advantage of the current situation in Russia. And, Kyiv is already concentrating troops in an attempt to retake the key Donbas city of Artyomovsk, known as Bakhmut in Ukraine. So the situation is very, I can't say inconvenient, and it's badly if I will describe it like being strange, because Wagner is a very powerful organization, very respected. They are real fighters, and half of Wagner troops, yes, they are mercenaries, but half of them are professional fighters with, they are half of heroes of Russia. So for me, it's very difficult to explain why Yevgeny Prigozhin made this, but he had very tense relations with defense ministry, because there are lots of problems are not being solved. And as I mentioned before, I see this situation is that the Kremlin must put both sides at the table and force these, both Wagner and Defense Ministry, discuss this problem, solve this problem, and not let this situation to reach such a horrible, I don't know, crisis. You have to solve problems, to discuss, to sit, to listen to each other. But what can I say from my side is that I regularly was watching this conflict between Yevgeny Prigozhin and Shoigu. It was coming more and more intensive, because lots of problems between Wagner and between official military forces were not discussed. These problems should be discussed at such situation. In the military fields, people, fighters need cooperation. And I didn't see it. Why, for example, I have one question. Why President Putin didn't force these two sides to sit at one table and solve problems and discuss? It was in his power. So I have lots of questions in my mind, which I cannot give an answer now. But I feel very sorry for Yevgeny Prigozhin, because lots of people had a big sympathy for ЧВК Wagner, because most of them, they are heroes, and they showed good results in fighting, protecting the population of Donbas. They're very professional in fighting, and they were very professional in Syria as well, the operation in Syria, as you know. So I'm very much upset, and I can't explain why and what's
Okay.
actually why did he make such a decision today.
Tim, so I don't think you heard what our correspondent Marina said.
Oh,
Um,
I heard her. Yeah, yeah, I heard
yeah.
everything.
In any case, whatever's behind, whatever's behind this, the man's got no chance, has he? Prigozhin. As we speak, we're getting reports that Russian helicopters have opened fire on the Wagner military convoy that entered into Russia, across the border from Ukraine. So, Ukraine, backed by the largest military alliance, so-called the largest military alliance we can say in the world, NATO, with hundreds
Yeah.
they can't take Russia on. This man is, at the end of the day, he's going to be crushed.
Well, yeah, you just mentioned that there was that helicopter-based attack on the column, and one of the things is that again, Prigozhin has to understand is that if he does this, well, why has Russia been able to repel the Ukrainian counteroffensive so well? Well, one of the reasons is because the Ukrainians have no control over the air. The Russians do, and when you can't really hit a helicopter with a tank, but a helicopter, or you can't really, yeah, you can't hit a helicopter with a tank, but helicopters can really hit tanks hard. So essentially, he doesn't have an air force. So it's sort of just a matter of time till the helicopters start shooting the tanks. Then you have sort of the next phase where, well, what could you do about this? You park your tanks where there are civilians, so that way the helicopter can't shoot its own people. And then he becomes exactly the same as the anti-terrorist operation that the Ukrainians had on the territory of the Donbass from 2014 up until the start of the war. Well, maybe 2015. Forgive me, I'm not great with dates. But you see what I mean? So yeah, it's kind of utter madness. And like my colleague was just saying earlier, everything is strange. I have to go out and say this is absolutely bizarre. I really just thought that Prigozhin was just trying to be theatrical to build a career for himself. But if he's really lost the plot, as our British friends would say, maybe his theatrics have gone too far. Because if he thinks that this is going to create some sort of amazing PR opportunity where he's going to, again, go like my colleague said, sit at the table with Shoigu and negotiate something that's going to look cool, I think it's just going to wind up with him being 6 feet under rather than becoming this weird sort of sacrificial lamb for the sake of fighting the war in a slightly different way.
Okay, thank you very much indeed for your thoughts. We'll see how this one unfolds. Marina Kurtanova is our correspondent in the Russian capital, Moscow, and Tim Kirby, radio host and political analyst, also joining us from Moscow.